And hello again, and welcome to my garage for another video about the Z1000A1 project, my latest project. And in the last few days it's been very busy because I've been ordering a lot of parts, and they're all here now. Well, not all, but almost all are here. I've also had a lot of parts and work done on my Mark II project, but that's part of a different video. And so we'll start off by going back in time to this morning when I took the engine, which is going to go in this project, out on the drive and discussed what options I've got for the build. And now on this lovely sunny day, very hot day actually, I brought out the cases and the barrel for the Z1000A1 project. Now as it turns out, this is not from a Z1000A1, no. This is from an A3/A4, which is a Mark II. So a much rarer engine. And I've since found out this engine actually came out of the frame that I'm building a Mark II out of, so it would make more sense to rebuild this and put it in the Mark II. But I'm not doing that because I've already got the engine pretty much finished for the Mark II. So anyway, the question is, what do we do with this engine? At the moment I've got the gearbox, bought a gearbox, and I also bought a Z1000A1 crank, but it turns out the crank may not be as good as I hoped, so rather than risking it, I just bought another one that arrived yesterday. I'll be taking it over to Jeff to check over once again, and fingers crossed this one will be good enough to go in this engine. And the reason why I'm going for a Z1000A1 internals is because they're much more available, much cheaper, and it's just a lot easier. So for example, I'll need to buy an alternator cover for the bike, and I want to buy a new one because that makes my life a lot easier. I can get a brand new one from Z Power for Z1000A1 for £75. That's a fantastic buy. Folks on eBay often want £50 or £60 for an old scratch one, whereas a new Mark II alternator cover is about £390 because they're so rare. And it's not just a cover, the internals are also different. The alternator, starter, coil and so on is also different. So by using the Z1000A1 crank, I can use a much cheaper and more available starter, rotor and so on, and of course the cover. So that makes sense to me. That said, if I want to build a bike that looks like a Z1000A1, roughly speaking anyway, this engine needs to be silver, not black. So I'm still unsure about that. Whatever I do, this engine will have to be blasted and recoated in some way, either black or silver or left bare aluminium, who knows. I've not yet got a head, still looking for one of those at a right price. So I am slowly buying the various bits. I'll also of course have to have the barrel rebored and buy new pistons, but the pistons and head, it kind of depends on what spec I want to build the engine into. Do I go for a pretty standard simple overbore, take it from 1015 to 1075cc? Do I go for 1170 again? Do I go even bigger? Do I fit low compression pistons so I can supercharge it or turbocharge it? Don't know. So I'm still open to suggestions on that one. I did think about maybe supercharging it, but having seen the troubles that Les has gone through on his long-running project, his supercharged Mark II, I thought, no, I'm not doing that. It's just such a nightmare. It's okay on a drag bike probably, but on a road bike, you know, you're going to have to fit a one-off aftermarket ignition system, probably go for injection, which needs its own ECU and so on. It just gets very, very complicated. That's okay, but that's not what I'm into. I'd rather fit carbs and something nice and old-fashioned that I can understand. So right now, I'm not sure. I'm still open to perhaps turbocharging this bike. That would be quite cool. And I'd turbocharge it the same way that a GPZ 750 turbo's been done, with the turbo at the base of the engine at the front rather than at the back somewhere, because that cleans up the pipe work a lot, but we'll see. So right now, I'm not sure. I'm still just buying parts for the bike. I've already got the points cover, I've already got a clutch cover, but I'm having Jeff make me one of his rather nice special billet clutch covers, similar to what I've got on the 1170, just to be different, and that also allows me to, if needed, fit a slightly wider clutch with more clutch plates, which maybe I'll need if I go for turbocharging or something like that. So right now, this is sitting here. It's still a long way from the need for me to actually even start this engine, because, as you know, the frame and the rolling chassis is still a long way from being finished. But I do need to think about it. I need to consider parts, what parts I'm going to buy. Some parts might take a long time to arrive. I'll have to decide on the finish of the cases. But one thing I've got to do first is take these cases apart and study and check out the bearings inside here, the bearing surfaces, because on the 1170 we found after I'd had them hard anodized, which cost more than £400, there was a crack in one of the journal faces, so that was a real pain. That was touch and go as to whether we could keep those cases. Fortunately, we know a good welder, and Jeff had a technique to try and, well, he did, bring back the surface as good as new, so we could continue to use those cases. But yeah, I don't want to go through that again, so these cases will be stripped down completely and checked over before we even think about using them on the build. Right, so that's that. Anybody got any suggestions as to what sort of spec I do this engine? I'm more than interested to hear from them. I am tempted actually just to build it as a pretty simple, straightforward, almost OE engine, because then it'll be easy to start, easy to use. I don't need to bother about buying some huge new, RS carbs. I can just use the carbs I've already got, and so on. It'll be a lot cheaper. But yeah, simple is not always what I do. I'm quite intrigued to perhaps turbocharge this engine, but we'll see. And so, as you can see, I've still got a big open question about the spec of the engine which is going to go in the project, but we'll cover that in a later video. So what's next? Well, I had a complaint on my last video because I did a box opening of some parts I've got from Z Power out on the drive, and amongst those parts was a brand new Z1 fuel tank all the way from Japan. So I took it out of this box, but it was all very neatly wrapped up, so I didn't bother unwrapping it to show you the tank on the video. There's no point. And I had a couple of people saying, oh come on, you should have shown us that tank, we're waiting to see that. And I must say I'm quite surprised, because I thought you guys would know what a Z1 tank looks like, but nevertheless. So in this video I'm going to make amends for that complaint, if you like, because I'm going to take all the bodywork, every part I've got so far, put it in the car, drive over to Jeff's workshop, and we're going to try it all out on the frame for the first time. We may even fit back wheel, swing arm again, and maybe even the front forks if Jeff's made a start on changing out the stem on those forks yet. I don't think he has, because I only took it down there a few days ago. So anyway, we will continue this video when I go to Jeff's workshop, and hopefully I'll make amends and we'll show you how all that new bodywork looks on the frame. Phew, right, so here we are back at Jeff's workshop. I've come at an interesting time.
Well, depends what you call interesting.
Well, interesting to me because...
bloody boring.
Well, I know. Because on the Miller, you've got...
Well, it's a means to an end, yeah.
Means to an end, I know. You've got my bracket, rear brake bracket for the...
Well, a few hours before,
yes,
I've managed to step it in. I've done it 8 mil each way.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, that, isn't it?
But
yeah.
I think it's a millimetre. I could have, if I'd have took another mil off that, I then put it on, and then if the space is too short, you've then got to make another spacer. But if I leave, I've left it. I thought I'll go to 7.5.
Right.
On a 8 mil I went to, and it's just, I've just worked it out. It's very difficult to actually to get everything. Perfect. Sometimes you do trial and error.
Course,
you've got to do a bit. And
absolutely.
But as it stands there now, we might have to say take a mil off the spacer.
Oh, it's okay. That spacer came with the
still
bike.
Plenty of room.
Yeah, it's no problem.
So, but it's easy just to keep taking a bit off that until
easier than trying to add it back on again. Anyway.
Yeah, that's 13 mil. That face there, they're close to the disc.
Yes. So it started off with 20 mil.
It started off with 20, yeah.
Yeah.
But we've gone in 8 there.
Yes.
And 8 that side. So it's sort of dog-legged.
Yes.
So that
stepped.
Yeah. But the threads had to go in there, because if you'd have done it and tried to put the bracket on the outside, it doesn't work. It'd just look
awful. Yes.
Crap. So.
Yes. Okay. So that's great. So
what I'm going to do now is just radius that round there
and
machine the sides in. That's going to be difficult. That probably the best way of doing that will just be to scribe it and just saw it out.
Yes, hand file it. Yeah,
just hand file it. And
it's just a bit that's immediately below the caliper.
It's just to clear the caliper.
Yeah, no problem.
Where the piston is.
Okay, so you crack on then, and I'll get on and do something else.
Are you going to do that?
I'll do that.
Right, we're on.
Yes. Okay. And off we go.
This is the 10 mil for the rose joint fit, you know.
Yes, that's right. At the bottom end of this bracket, I want to be able to screw the rose joint for the torque arm straight into this, rather than put a nut behind it. So we're making the lower part 10 mil rather than 8 or whatever.
It's 12 mil thick, so I think that's more than enough for you know, for a bolt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So first of all, we have this. This is a second-hand battery box ready for the frame, and I didn't want to make one because it's quite a complicated shape, and it also includes this bracket here, which is part of the side panel mount. So I didn't want to have to go through the hassle of making all that. It's actually pretty good condition. A bit of surface rust here, no great problem. I'll get it powder coated when we powder coat the frame. So let's see how this goes in here. I have no idea which way will it go. Right, so with that waffly in place, I'll go and get the next part. And so the next part is the rear ducktail. I must apologise because it's just starting to rain and the wind's picked up, and yeah, it's not ideal, is it? It's not ideal. And I can't use my microphone when I'm using both hands. But anyway, there's the ducktail in place, and this is a brand new side panel. Just ordered it, it arrived yesterday. Hopefully it'll fit without any great problem. Yeah, I can see how that bracket works now. So we don't need that just yet. Pop him on. And there's a brand new side panel on the frame. And now with the swing arm loosely fitted, it's time to go and get the back wheel and get it in the bike. And thankfully, the sun's now come out and the wind's dropped. So let's get cracking. And so now with the back wheel in place, the piece de la resistance is of course the new fuel tank, which I'm now going to unwrap and put on the frame. And so hopefully all of this makes amends for the fact that I didn't unwrap the fuel tank on the last video. So anyway, that's all looking pretty good, and as I've already mentioned, I do have a seat coming for the bike all the way from Japan. I think it's due here next week. So when it arrives, we'll bring it back over here and get it on the bike and see how it looks. It's not a standard seat, by the way, it's a custom seat, so I'm quite excited to see how that looks on the bike. As for the front end, Jeff has made a start on modifying the yokes of the Z1000 RS forks to fit this whole frame here. He's got to press out the new stem that's in those yokes and then press in with a top hat spacer, of course, the old stem from a Z1000A1. Made a start on that, but not finished yet. Also, of course, as we've just seen, he's now working on the bracket to fit the Brembo brake to this back end, and hopefully in the next few days that'll all be finished and we'll get it on the bike along with a cool stainless steel torque arm with rose joints and so on. So that's it so far, and we'll continue this video when we can see a bit more done.